And here we go. The joy of the way things work not working. And we have Larry joining us today. It's going to be an interesting show today. I put things together, planning for certain things, and you never actually know how things are going to go until you start. That's the joy of doing a live broadcast. And we're going to see some of that. So part of what I plan to do today, where I'm talking about, as a show, I always Word of God, and I consider news today, the importance of what I am teaching. I consider it so important that I consider it news, because we have too many people who don't know what fallacies are. And if it's just like they don't teach logic anymore in the public high school. They require, who teaches logic? It's the social studies teacher, because the kids can't pass if they don't know the difference between and or. The English teacher doesn't do it. The math teacher doesn't do it. We're all places they don't teach logic. But again, with this respect, they don't teach the Bible anymore. So let's get into that. Galatians 3:24-29. Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we might be justified by faith. But after the faith is come, we are no longer under a schoolmaster. For you are all the children of God by faith in Christ Jesus. For as many of you have been baptized into Christ, have put on Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. For you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you be Christ, then are you Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. The law teaches us that we are indeed sinners. We carry the guilt of each and every sin. Those sins stink and leave a stain upon us that we deserve their penalty. But the law points to its fulfillment. Jesus, the Messiah, the Christ. If you understand you're a sinner, come to faith in Christ, you are washed in his blood and cleansed from your sins. That stain and stench are washed away. You become a child of God through that faith in Jesus. There is no division, no separation between those in Christ at all. As Christians, you are one body. There are no boundaries separating us. There's no races. You're just one family. When I'm asked why I go to church where I do, I tell them this is my church family. Yes, I have sisters. Yes, I have a family of my own, but here is where my family gathers. I have brothers and sisters with so many differences and backgrounds, but we all have our faith in Jesus who binds us together. There is a great joy in knowing your family loves and accepts you, regardless of who you were before you found Christ. Dear Lord Jesus, you took us as we were deep in our sins and called us. You still called out to us, knowing we were rebellious and seeking sinful things. Your love breaks barriers. Your love tears down walls. Your love even accepted me. Lord, please keep working on each of us. Make each of us more like you, that we may be examples of this love that you have for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Wow. And I think I'm going to have some Wi-Fi issues, and I'm hoping I don't. It's kind of hard to tell the way we're starting here. But if we do, I'm going to have to change up how I have things organized. So let's take a wild shot at what I want to present, and we'll start there. All right. And just getting everything ready. Okay. So this right here, the whole topic I want to start with, again, is about fallacious reasoning. If you work with anyone who does not know Jesus, you'd have to listen to them. You have to pay special attention to what they're saying. Last week we talked about the problem of evil. That became extremely important to think about. You know, the people who would talk about the problem of evil as a reason why they won't accept Christ is because something horrible has happened in their life. So listening is extremely important for that reason. We want to be there. We want to listen to them. We want to hear their hurt so we can help guide them to the Savior who has given all for them. Now, reason we also need to listen is so we can hear illogical arguments, fallacious reasoning, and we can point it out. When someone displays fallacious reasoning, we need to figure out what's going on. And that's extremely important. I want to explain a little bit more about this. And let me just get the right button here. Here we go. So, logic rules. Everything you've learned to date that I've taught so far is all about logic. But think about it. How can understanding the rules of logic make you better at sharing Jesus? Now, I would normally do a 10-minute discussion on this, but it's something to think about. How can understanding the rules of logic make you better at sharing Christ? Now, hold on a minute. I am going to get out of this for just a second. I've got to change screen, so hold on a second. And we're going to come back over here. Wait, I've got one more here. All right. Oops, go back. All right. So let's think about this. This is where I think taming the tongue is really important, because that's what kind of rules are a lot of the troubles we get into. But that's also saying, it's not when you say things without thinking, that's when you start to get into fallacious reasoning. And this one says, James 3:8, but no man can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. Now, you all know what kind of capability your tongue gets you into, what kind of troubles it gets you into. We all say stupid things that we wish we'd never said. So it's something to think about. It's a horrible thing to have to take back something you said and you wish you never said. We have to pay careful and watch for that. So I'm just trying to get back so I can see the comments. Okay. All right, here we go. Next one. And I'm going to switch up my screens here. This is the joy of, all right, we're just going to come back here so I can get this going. And I have to hit escape. I'll be right there in just a second. This is the joy of doing things 3 different ways. And I'm worried about my Wi-Fi because it's not showing me that it's ready, which is bothering me. All right, so we're going to start with the genetic fallacy. And let me just come back here. Okay. The genetic fallacy, the claim that a history of a claim is relevant to the truth of a claim. The claim that an idea, a product, or a person must be untrustworthy because of its racial, geographic, or ethnic origin. We have some problems here. Again, the idea or a person must be untrustworthy because of their origin. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about they must be untrustworthy because they have a belief that tells them to lie. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the person who says, well, you came from so-and-so, so you must be a liar. Or you live so you live here, you can't be trusted. Those are the kind of things we're talking about. So think about before civil rights passed, how did the justifications for racism sound? Well, you're black, you must be this kind of person. You're white, you must be that kind of person. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. So let's play this video. And just got to pull this video.
Say, hey, you know what, this whole Christian thing, it's just a fluke. Suppose somebody was born Saudi, maybe it would be a Muslim by nature, but they were born.
Yes, that's very true. But that somehow invalidates a person's Christian belief is a textbook example of a logical fallacy called the genetic fallacy. The genetic fallacy is trying to invalidate a position by showing how a person came to hold it. And that's obviously an invalid way of reasoning. A person might come to hold a belief for any number of reasons, some of them inadequate, but that doesn't show that the belief itself is false. So, for example, if you had been born in ancient Greece, you probably would have believed that the earth is flat and perhaps that the sun goes around the earth. But does that mean that your belief that the earth is round and that it goes around the sun is therefore unjustified or false? Well, obviously not. You cannot invalidate a belief simply by showing how a person came to hold it. That is to commit the genetic fallacy.
And the next one, appeal to force. You'll meet people who are really into bullying, and they'll tell you, I'm strong, therefore my answer is right. Yeah, get in my way, I'll hurt you. They'll say things like this. They imply threats. If you don't do it this way, it's my way or the highway. Really, is that the correct way to reason? You have to stop and think about when you hear those things. So I'm going to play this video, and anybody has a comment, please let me know. And I have to be careful because I have my sound coming out of this, so I don't want to have the echo effect. So let me know, and I will take this down if you'd like to comment, so we don't get the echo. All right, here we go. And
what do you think of my plan to improve security aboard ship by implementing daily searches of all low-ranking crew members for contraband?
Well, I don't think it'll work. I believe it'll be counterproductive.
How would you like to spend a week in sickbay with low-power phaser burns to your fingers? Well, or perhaps an hour in the agony booth would change your mind, eh?
Upon reflection, I think frequent searches is a great idea.
I, of course, overheard your remarks. Yes, sir.
Sir?
The argument you are employing, Mr. Sir, is not logical. In fact, it exhibits the fallacy of argumentum ad baculum, also known as the appeal to force.
I thought Security Chief Sulu was very persuasive.
That may be so, Navigator Chekhov, but the argument is invalid. This fallacy is an argument of force, coercion, or the threat of force is given as a justification for accepting a conclusion. But, sir, I only, if I may continue, while your tactic of physical intimidation and domination of your subordinate through force are to be commended as effective means of serving the Empire's objectives, your statements are still technically on the logical fallacy, since you provide no evidence that your plan to improve security aboard ship is a good. The ad baculum, a special case of argumentum ad consequentium, or appeal to consequences. In this case, painful consequences.
Thank you, Commander Spock.
Yes, I would sure I have valid reasons behind my security plans in the future. That would be very advisable.
What do you think about this? Is it a no-brainer to say? Do you think it's a no-brainer to not allow bullying? I mean, that's what it comes down to. If you think about what that's all about, no bullying. Bullying is illogical. It's if you think about that, if we had kids start to use logic, that would be the end of bullying. Whoa. It's never going to happen. It happens in high schools. It happens in colleges. It happens in life, almost every place you go. And that's sad. You go to workplaces, they have that. The cool thing is now you know that when you run into someone who's into this, you can talk to them or their bosses about their illogical manners of behaving. So they're using this appeal to force You go to a personnel division like that, that'll be something. I have only seen one case where I was talking to someone and trying to, introduce Christ, and they used the appeal to force to get me to leave. Let me know that they didn't want me there, type thing. And I listened to their argument. I was like, "Are you, do you feel so scared that you have to appeal like you're going to do harm, just because we're having a discussion?" And that was an interest, like I say, by itself, it was an interesting discussion. Wasn't something I expected in a response, but some things just make you think. This next one is called the ad hominem argument. It's called against the man. That's what ad hominem means, against the man. In a fallacy this is a fallacy of relevance, where someone rejects or criticizes another person's view on the basis of personal characteristics, background, physical appearance, or other things that are irrelevant to the argument. So it's basically, this is where they insult you. Now, on the Cross and the Crescent, we had a guy. We had two guys come on. It was like 1 week, and then a guy like 2 weeks later. And when we had them come on, they pointed out that this is the stuff that makes me laugh. I mean, they started to call us worse than pigs. Okay, that's a fallacy, but I want you I'm going to play the video, and hopefully you can enjoy the humor as much as I do. All right, let me just pull this up.
Refers to a logical.
There we go. Sorry.
Ad hominem is a Latin phrase meaning literally to the man. It refers to a logical fallacy, or in other words, a bad argument. Ad hominem is when someone uses a personal attack as an argument. This takes many forms, 4 of which will be covered in this video. The first is the abusive form. For example, John argues that because dark chocolate has antioxidants and most other candies only have sugar which rots your teeth, dark chocolate is therefore better than most sweets. Tim responds to this argument, "Yeah, but you're a greedy jerk." Whatever John's moral character may be, Tim's response is not an argument. John may in fact be a greedy jerk, but that doesn't make him wrong. Another more common variant of this is the circumstantial form. For example, if Tim were to respond to John's argument saying, "Yeah, but you work for the chocolate company, you're paid to say it." John may have been paid to make the argument, but that doesn't address the argument he was making. Now, if Tim were to respond to John's argument, "Yeah, but I saw you eating a candy cane," this would be an example of the third variant of ad hominem, called tu quoque, which is Latin for "you also." Being a hypocrite does not invalidate an argument. The fourth and final form of ad hominem is the guilt by association. This would be if Tim responded to John by saying, "Nazis also believed dark chocolate was better," implying that, holding this belief, John is as bad as a Nazi. That still is not an argument. John may in fact be a Nazi, but that doesn't automatically make him wrong. It certainly doesn't address the issue at hand. Just remember, a personal attack is not an argument. So the next time you see this happening in a discussion, make sure to link them to this video.
All right.
Sarah Palin, taking aim at your decision to restrict use of nuclear weapons, your pledge not to strike nations, non-nuclear nations, who abide by the non-proliferation treaty. Here's what she said. She said, "It's unbelievable. No other administration would do it." And then she likened it to kids on the playground. She said, "You're like a kid who says, 'Punch me in the face, and I'm not going to retaliate.'" Your response?
I really have no response to that. Last I checked, Sarah Palin is not much of an expert on nuclear issues.
Both of those were ad hominem, what Sarah Palin said and what Obama said.
Harold Ford looks nice. Isn't that enough? Terrorists need their privacy.
When I die,
Harold Ford will let me pay taxes again.
Ford's right. I do have too many guns.
I met Harold at the Playboy party. I'd love to pay higher marriage taxes.
Canada can take care of North Korea. They're not busy.
So we took money from porn movie royalties. I mean, who hasn't?
The Republican National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
It refers to a logical.
Okay. Sorry. I have to admit, when I saw this the first time, it made me laugh. The reasoning is
Ad
this.
hominem is a Latin.
Oops, hold on. All right. So there are, again, 3 types. We're going to get into the bit. Sorry, this is the ad. We're going to get into the, I think I skipped a video. Or, okay, maybe I didn't. Okay, ad populum argument to the people. Using an appeal to popular assent, often by using an appeal often to popular assent, often by arousing the feelings and enthusiasm of the multitude rather than building an argument. So, because everybody's doing it, it's okay. If more than one do it, it's okay. You think about it. Your kids will come home and mom will say, your mom, I mean, many of us remember moms and dads saying this. If everybody else wanted to jump off a cliff, would you do it too? No. But yeah, pay attention. This will surprise you. All right. I'm going to start with, okay, hold on. We'll get there. 3 types. Bandwagon. Everybody's doing it, therefore you should do it. Popular acceptance of any argument does not prove it to be valid, nor does popular use of any product necessarily prove it's the best one. I usually get dinged for this because they want to say that
You're a whole new generation.
They have a right to something, but they don't know what fair use is.
Magic on the run. You're a whole new generation. You're loving what they do. I put a Pepsi in the motion, and that choice is up to you. Hey, you're the Pepsi generation. 'Cause I'm down and taste the thrill of the day. And feel the Pepsi way. Taste the thrill of the day. And feel the Pepsi way. You're a whole generation. You're a whole generation. You're a whole generation. You're a whole generation.
Did he say you're a whole generation?
No, he said you're a whole new generation.
Oh. What's up, Larry Dorsey?
Hey, I think when I show this and I teach this as a class, people start laughing their heads off because they can relate to this. This is stuff they grew up with, and I mean, I remember that video. I remember that advertisement. I think I was a freshman in college or something like that. Yeah, it goes back to that. Wait till you see this next one. All right, so here we go. This one will make you laugh.
Here come the hot stepper. I'm the lyrical gangster. Big up the queen of the area. Still love you like that. No, we don't die. Yes, we multiply. Anyone press me, left I sing. I clap you know we go. I know what go, no, no. Let's get up and go. Here come the upstairs pop. I'm the lyrical youngster. Pick up the queen of the area. Still like that. Here come the upstairs pop. I'm the lyrical youngster. Excuse me, Mr.
So if everybody's doing it.
I remember that one. That was hilarious.
Okay, hold on. This will make you laugh.
His healthcare plan all summer. This live address is our chance to make our dissent heard. Now we have the text of the address right here. Okay. Now you look with here. Let's see, right somewhere in the middle. Here it is. Okay. He is going to say this: the reforms I'm proposing would not apply to those who are here illegally. Okay. Now when he says that, all of us, all at once, together, are going to yell, "You lie!" Good. We all in agreement. Okay, good. That's going to be fun. They'll send a message. Yeah, Senator Roberts, question.
I'm just worried this might come off as a major breach of congressional decorum.
Okay, now normally I would agree. I mean, if only one guy yelled, "You lie," I imagine they would call him out on it. But all of us, remember school? If we all do it, we can't get in trouble. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, it's been a long time for some of us, right?
That one still kills me. All right. Just a second here. I'll have to say this. As a retired teacher, when you see, it is pretty true. When everybody does it in a school setting, you can't do you can punish the whole group, which is a horrible thing to do. But you you get frustrated. I'll tell you, you'll get frustrated. Okay, second part here. Patriotic approach. Draping oneself in the flag. This argument asserts that a certain stance is true or correct because it's somehow patriotic, and those who disagree are unpatriotic. Think about that one. And here, come on.
To follow a busy doctor as he makes his daily round of calls, you'll find yourself having a mighty busy...
Hold on a second. I went too far. All right, so this next... Okay, and then there's a snob approach. All the best people are doing it, so it can't be wrong, can it? Now, this will make you laugh. If you haven't seen this before.
You know, if you were to follow a busy doctor as he makes his daily round of calls, you'd find yourself having a mighty busy time keeping up with him. Time out for many men of medicine usually means just long enough to enjoy a cigarette. And because they know what a pleasure it is to smoke a mild, good-tasting cigarette, they're particular about the brand they choose. In a repeated national survey, doctors in all branches of medicine, doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Why not change to Camels for the next 30 days and see what a difference it makes in your smoking enjoyment? See how Camels agree with your throat. See how mild and good tasting a cigarette can be.
I have to say, when I showed this the first time, I had so many people roaring, laughing, they couldn't believe it. Why? Because it was hard for them to believe that I found an advertisement with doctors were smoking. And what do doctors tell us today? Don't smoke. It's dangerous for your health. It wasn't that long ago they were saying, hey, okay, so it's something to think about. If you are in the States, you probably won't see very many medical professionals smoking. If you go to Europe, it's pretty normal. Should surprise you. It's different. Different cultures are a little bit different. How about this one? Appeal to tradition. We do it this way because we've always done it this way, and that makes it right. Does that really make it right? Is that the truth? And I don't think I can get the sound up.
A pleasant, simple tune without breaking his
I have to go back and edit this. All right, so I'm just going to skip over this.
and how to because of our tradition. We've kept
And if you're not familiar, this comes from Fiddler on the Roof, and you can go find this. The song is called Tradition. Watch the whole thing. It will make you laugh when you're thinking about tradition. Why are some traditions are good? It doesn't mean that they're illogical. Does the fact that you have traditions, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're using tradition, we've always done it this way as an argument, you're in trouble. When you actually debate a Muslim, they'll skip over a lot of, well, we believe, you Christians say these things because we've been taught that. Wait a minute. So because your traditions tell you that Christians believe these things, it's not because Christians believe those things. Wait a minute. So you could have been told the wrong things. And this is where things get interesting. What's the real truth here? I mean, do you trust your tradition more than you trust? This is the issue. Do you trust your tradition more than you trust the people you're talking to? That's where you run into trouble. Appeal to improper authority. I'm just hoping the sound is working here because I'm getting a little frustrated with the sound, and that says it's up to 100, and I don't know if everybody's hearing this as well. I hope people are hearing this. Let me try and turn this up if that works any. All right. I don't know if that'll be any better. I hope it is. Okay. Let me know if you can't hear this sound in the next one, please. All right. Let's keep going here. All right. Attempts to capitalize upon feelings, respect, or familiarity. All right. Just going to go back a little bit. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Attempts to capitalize upon feelings of respect or familiarity with a famous individual. It's not fallacious to refer to an admitted authority if the individual's expertise within that strict field. On the other hand, to cite Einstein to argue about economics or gaming, that's fallacious.
Your Honor, the flatness of the earth is one of the most hallowed precepts of dinosaur tradition. Yet there are those among us who would require some proof that the world is flat. Fair enough. Let the record show that I now offer absolute and unimpeachable evidence. A guy in a lab coat. You are an engineer with lots of impressive degrees. That is correct. And you work at the Say-So Corporation that is correct. See, Lateral Globe Division. And just what have you brought here to show us to the only this? And we have a warehouse full of these things. Proofing up for you, Missy.
He's an engineer. He's not. I mean, he's not. He's an engineer. He works in a place called We Say So, that doesn't give him any authority. Did everybody hear that? I should ask. I hope people did.
I mean, I could make it out, but it wasn't the loudest.
I'm gonna have to go back and edit this so I can get the sound better. Sorry about that. I didn't double check this morning. Okay. Appeal to emotion. An emotion. an emotional appeal to justify a conclusion. If a person tries to use emotion merely for the sake of getting the reader to accept what should be a logical conclusion, the argument is a fallacy. So appealing to emotion, think about this. And I've got to figure out what I can do to get the sound better. I have an idea. Let me just stop sharing for a second. And it draws, yeah, if it's one of the weird things. Okay. All right, let's try this.
Please, go ahead, Mr. Quagmire.
Look, I know everyone's sitting out there judging me today, but before you do, please know I had it pretty rough growing up. My dad was a military man, so he wasn't around much. And my mom, well, let's just say she was a little promiscuous. In fact, I think my problem started the day I was born.
Mr. Quagmire, your story is a sad one, but that doesn't excuse your actions. I have no choice but to sentence you to 20 years in prison.
Yeah. Is it true that that he should be able to justify his whole argument based on what happened to his emotions? I mean, his emotions, really. He could do anything because of his emotions. There are people who will kill because they get angry. There are people who will steal because their emotions told them to. Yeah, really. Is that good enough argument to consider logic? No, that's a fallacy. This one I like because I run into it too many times. To me, that's scary. When you have fallacies and you're running into them too many times, something's up. Petitio principi. Again, circular reasoning. Where do I run into this? 9 times out of 10, it's with Islam. The other place I run into it, people who want to argue for secular, they want to argue for secular, secular type settings. When you run into people who argue, well, you can't have religion in schools, you can't have religion in this, you can't have religion in that. Usually the people who are on top are using, and which is sad. I mean, this is what I always find them is, well, we've always done it this way. That's tradition. But again, they'll again, this is begging the question, the circular reason. They'll start with their conclusion. They don't realize they're doing this, and then they build. This is the part that bothers me. So basically, they assume as evidence for their argument the very conclusion they are attempting to prove. They engage in the fallacy of begging the question, again, pretty much used interchangeably with circular reasoning. And you'll see that here. And where'd my mouse go? There we go.
Kind of reminds you, Abraham was in Mecca because the Quran said he was in Mecca.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. And you'll see that. It's frustrating.
English accent. Begging the question. Contrary to popular usage, begging the question is a technical term that is often misapplied. In logic, begging the question is assuming the conclusion you're trying to prove. It's a type of circular reasoning, first identified and written about by Aristotle way back in the 4th century BC. For instance, the Da Vinci Code is a true story. How do you know? Because it says it's true at the start. What you've done there is you've assumed that everything in it is true in order to prove that it is true. You've actually appealed to the very thing in question, namely the truth of what's written in the book, as proof of itself. You've gone in a circle. Try this one on for size. My boyfriend doesn't lie to me. How do you know? Because he says so. How do you know he's telling the truth? Because he's honest. Again, you've actually used something as proof that is the very thing we are trying to question. You'll often hear people say begs the question when they actually mean raises the question. Don't get them mixed up. They are not the same. Interestingly, the actual phrase begging the question comes from a mistranslation. The medieval philosophers who looked at the Latin petitio principi correctly identified petitio as being derived from the Latin verb petere, meaning to beg. That's where we get the English word petition from. But petere can be used to mean make for, seek, desire, attack, move towards, or claim, as in you claim the conclusion as one of your premises.
Okay.
What an escape. Captain Kirk is the best starship captain in the fleet. That's why he has assigned command to the Federation's flagship. He's great, all right, but I don't know that he's the best. They gave him command of the flagship because no other captain was as good as he is. Captain Kirk is the Enterprise's commander, and the Enterprise is the Federation's flagship, isn't it? Well, yeah, I guess so. Well, that proves it. Captain Kirk is the best starship captain in the fleet. That's why he was assigned command of the Federation's flagship. Excuse me, gentlemen. I couldn't help overhearing. Yes, sir. The argument you are employing, Mr. Kyle, is not logical. In fact, it exhibits the fallacy of petitio principi, also known as circular reasoning or begging the question. The argument seems to make sense. That may be so, but the form of the argument is invalid. Arguments employing this fallacy all assume a premise statement which has the same meaning as a conclusion. You essentially were saying that Captain Kirk is the best starship captain in the fleet, and assigned to Starfleet's flagship because no other captain was as good as he is. You employed circular reasoning because the phrase no other captain was as good as he is the same as saying he is the best starship captain in the fleet. Oh, indeed. That is not to say that Captain Kirk is not the best captain in the fleet, Lieutenant. I believe he is.
I think
Philosophical concepts explained in
all right.
brief in a posh English.
All right.
As in you.
Sorry. The joy of doing things and getting them. All right. Here we go. Just get it to the right spot. Okay. Now we have the hasty generalization. And this is one of the things you will encounter when you're out there. It's not just doing debates. You'll hear this one when you're just talking to someone sometimes. Hasty generalizations can lead to trouble. Sometimes you just listening and being around somebody making statements that are sometimes considered racist. It could be this, that's part of where hasty generalization gets into. So again, mistaken use of inductive reasoning when there are too few samples to prove a point. You can think about where that gets you, like the concept that one particular kind of people all like chicken, or I mean, you can go on and on and on with this when you don't have enough of a sample. It can get you into a lot of trouble sometimes, just, again, listening. You can hear two of me. That's not good. All right. I will have to figure that one out. Sorry about that. All right. Let's see what I can do with that. I think all I can think is let me stop sharing again. All right, we'll try this one more time. Is that better? And we'll just try this one more time. All right. Okay, let me start this next video.
Sometimes think that the liberals are always so angry because they believe the grandiose process of the liberation movements. They're disappointed because most women do not wish to be liberated from their essential natures as women.
I think there's one more here.
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back to your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're on a boat with the man your man could smell. What's in your head? Back to me. I am. It's an oyster with 2 tickets to that thing you love. Look again. The tickets are now diving. Anything is possible when your man smells like Old Spice and not a lady. I'm on a horse.
The Axe Apollo Space Academy.
That one always makes me laugh. Hopefully I'm not doubling. All right. Please let me know if I am doubling again. I think that's a strange effect that happens when I share my screen. We'll see. Some of these things you just sit there and you're like, wait a minute. I mean, yeah, some of them were just silly, but these are fallacies that we actually run into in real life. How about this one? The false cause. It establishes that a cause or effect relationship where there is none. Now, the false cause is almost always done on purpose to throw you off track. Huh. Gee, who do we know who does that kind of thing? Yeah, it's sad. It's truly sad. And let's see. Here we go.
Hey, Robert, you still have that banana in your ear. What? I said you still have that banana in your ear. Yeah, Bert, I know. You know, Ernie, why is that banana still in your ear? Listen, Bert, I use this banana to keep the alligators away. Alligators? Ernie, there are no alligators on Sesame Street. Right. Doing a good job, isn't it, Bert?
All right, and here's one of my
figure. So you have
oh, hold on a second. I got to pull that back. Red herring, one of my favorite ones. Irrelevant conclusion. The red herring, one of my favorite ones. A deliberate attempt to change the subject or divert the argument from the real question at issue into some side point. Again, it's deliberate. It's done on purpose. It's thrown at you. So, Dr. Gufar, I'm going to pick on you. The truth is, when people, let me just stop sharing for a second. And I know my screen's going to go fuzzy. So, let me just hit stop sharing. All right. So, this is one of the reasons I don't understand what's going on. So, hold on just a second. Just share my screen again without sound so I don't look so fuzzy. All right. So, Dr. Gufar, how many times has a red herring been thrown out when you've been doing debating with Muslims?
Oh, at least I'd say somewhere between 50 and 75%.
And this one is to me, this is the, and I look at this as something that's childish. The children will go and they'll try and distract you when you're thinking logically, because that keeps them from getting into trouble. Oh, let's see. You did this. You're probably the one who did it. You know, yeah. You have 3 or 4 kids in the house, or let's say you only have 1 kid in the house. All right. Oh, see. Now, I don't think the dog did this. I don't know if you've ever had that argument. that kind of stuff, kids will do this. What kills me is that adults do it. I mean, and when you're doing debates and you're just trying to talk to people and get them to think, the red herring is like a last resort, you would almost think. Ad hominem, I think, would be the last resort, but it's done all the time. All right, so let me just stop sharing and get back, and I'll show you the next video. This one is, I like this one. It makes you laugh. Here we go. Almost done with this part. And, all right. Here we go. Should be just a second. Again, children.
Used with straw figure. So here I want to highlight the differences between the two. The name red herring comes from an old method of training dogs for fox hunting. The goal is to train the dogs to follow the fox's scent, even if the dogs encounter other smells that are potentially distinct. So what they do is they let the fox go, so the fox leaves a scent trail. Then, before letting the dogs go, they drag a bunch of smelly red herrings across the fox's trail, like this. Then they release the dogs. When the dogs hit the herring trail, they'll be distracted by the smell, and some will be inclined to follow the herring trail instead. So trainers try to get the dogs to stay on the fox trail and resist the urge to follow the herring.
How do I apologize for this?
This is an apology from Kenji and the Mike in the kitchen. That blowfish you just ate was lethally poisonous. An ambulance is coming, but you're pretty much screwed. We're sorry for the inconvenience. But hey, Light. Nice. See, it's all good.
Refreshingly smooth, Bud Light's always worth it.
Quick, give me the check.
That one gets me every time. Like, yeah, I mean, when you start to think about it, some of these results are just silly. I mean, the way they're done. Again, these are silly things. They're silly because we're talking about fallacies. And when you start looking at the lack of logic here, it just makes you sit there and go, how could they do that? And you start laughing. All right. That's just the way it is. How about this one? Strawman. The name comes from the idea of a boxer or fighter who's meticulously fashions a false opponent out of straw, like a scarecrow. And then he can easily knock it over in the ring. Especially before an admiring audience. Now we go back to the 1800s. This wasn't an unusual thing. Be sitting there kind of like, okay, really, you can knock something over that's like that. You really want to think that you think that's going to hold up. Now this next video I love because I love the guy who presents these fallacies this way. All right, just pull this up. Okay.
Believe it. Strawman fallacy. Contrary to what many people would have us believe, a straw man is not simply an argument that you dislike or find inconvenient. Rather, it is a version of an argument that is misrepresented, simplified, so that it is easier to knock over. Just as an actual man made of straw is a less solid version of a man made of flesh, a straw man argument is a less solid version of a fully fleshed out argument. A straw man replaces or represents whatever actual argument is being made. Straw manning can come in many different forms. It's not even always intentional. You might accidentally construct a straw man if you don't fully understand the depth of an argument. And that is fine. It happens to the best of us. However, to intentionally misread or misrepresent an argument to simplify the process of discrediting it, that's a little bit less forgivable. To take nuanced points out of context, to ignore crucial information, to even exaggerate claims to the point of absurdity, which is then easier to refute. These are all strawman tactics. For example, Mike and Straw Mike are having a conversation about how to responsibly depict awful stuff in media. I don't think it's too much to ask that when a media creator wants to show heinous or awful stuff, they do so in a context that shows that that stuff is heinous and awful. Oh, so now we're not allowed to show violent or terrible things unless we include some long-winded sermon about how bad things are bad? I think creators should be able to show or do whatever they want. The original argument states a preference for what Mike thinks constitutes the responsible use of media. The strawman argument recasts this as something much simpler and easier to agree with. Freedom is good, censorship is bad. But now Mike and Straw Mike are no longer arguing about the same point, and so the conversation will quickly become unfocused and aggressive.
Now, that's where things get dangerous because you get off course, and the red herring does it. Again, you got to be careful. The straw man gets you off course, and if you fall for this one, you're not paying attention. This one, I'm sorry, this one just it's a silly one. It's something you expect from children. It's one of those ones parents will tell their children, but it's not something you would normally hear today as an adult. So basically, in a slippery slope, a speaker argues that once the first step is taken, a second or third step will inevitably follow, much like the way one takes steps. The steps on a slippery incline will cause a person to fall and slide all the way to the bottom. Thus, taking step one leads to a fall to the bottom. These conclusions may seem silly or nonsensical. You tell me if these are silly. All right. Should start.
Driving. Cars that park themselves. An automated car driven by a search engine company. We've seen that movie. It ends with robots harvesting our bodies for it.
When your cable company keeps you on hold, you get angry. When you get angry, you go blow off steam. When you go blow off steam, accidents happen. When accidents happen, you get an eye patch. When you get an eye patch, people think you're tough. When people think you're tough, people want to see how tough. And when people want to see how tough, you wake up in a roadside ditch. Don't wake up in a roadside ditch. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
That one always makes me laugh too. All right. And stop screen save. So while you're thinking about this, and I want you to pay attention to, I got two more fallacies to share. Okay. And let's get the screen I need to get to. All right. This one I thought was interesting because I think it's been avoided a lot. The loaded question. Asking a question that contains a presumption so that it's impossible to answer without accepting it and appearing guilty. So, Dr. Kufar, here's another one I think you probably encounter a lot. They'll start out, even if we're talking about the Trinity or we're talking about science in the Quran, they start out with, they'll say a presumption. They believe that we believe Mary's part of the Trinity. And, if you respond to that saying, you have to go back, you have to walk back and explain to them that Mary's not part of the Trinity. but the way they're asking it is you have to accept it. Either way you answer that, yeah. So think about this. They have the guy in the green saying, "Hey, where did you misplace my pipette?" And look at the guy responds saying, "What? I didn't misplace it." Wait a minute. That means he took it. If you think about that, the way it sounds like he took it. But again, it's a loaded question. He didn't have it. If he said yes, he didn't say. If he said no, and this guy's saying I didn't misplace it. So where did you put it? Is the next question he would normally follow through. And this is kind of what the guy in the green does. He says, "Oh, so you're still using it without asking." Oh, and he has no choice. That's just, again, it's a bad fallacy. And then I had one more fallacy, burden of proof, which is asserting that a claim is true because it cannot be proven false. Asserting that a claim is true because, burden lies with someone else to disprove it is what the idea is. We ask, here's the thing I'll say about this one. If you watch the David Wood and Kenny Bomber debate, it was disastrous. It was disastrous. Part of the reason is that Kenny uses so many fallacies in the short term that it's a short term. And most of his fallacies have to use with appealing to a false authority. And he tries to push the burden of proof off onto David Wood. David Wood uses the scriptures to prove that Kenny doesn't really have a clue as to what he's talking about. And this is the kind of thing that goes on. He's trying to prove that it's just the fallacious amount of fallacious reasoning under Kenny Bomber. It was just so bad. You kind of wish there was something else. So if anybody wants to talk about the fallacious reasoning they've seen in debates or anything, we'd love to have you talk. Please go ahead.
I mean, I'm not up to speed on all the different fallacies, but I would say that the ones that you covered here, from what I've seen, kind of pretty much describes the ones that I've had to encounter. The ad hominem, the red herrings, the one that I can't pronounce, the tu quoque something.
Tu quoque?
Yeah.
Yes. And that's part of the ad hominem. So yeah. It's kind of shocking when the ones that get me that really surprise me is it's built into Islamic belief. And that's the one where in Islamic belief, they're told that Christians believe Mary is part of the Trinity. And that's just, again, it's fallacious reasoning. They didn't go to the correct source. And yeah, here we go. Ed, Christ wasn't crucified. Wait a minute. Where did you hear that? Well, Islam teaches that. But is that fact? So you can go back and check. Well, let's see. If you say Christ wasn't crucified, how do you know that and how do you prove it? Well, if you go through all history, you find out, so many historians who hated Christians record it as having happened. Isn't that a problem with you're 600 years later and you don't get it? Any other ones you can think of, or?
Hey, I might have one, and maybe it's a little bit different.
Okay.
I'm kind of a fan of Frank Turek, and he always talks about the now I forgot the name of it. The self-defeating argument. Would that be included in this or no?
Yes, it would. And in special education, we talk about something called the self-fulfilled prophecy. It's kind of along the same way. You're defeating your own argument is one thing. You're creating your own problem type thing when you're talking about that. Yeah, it's the same, along the same lines. Can you give us an example, Larry?
Oh boy, I'd have to think about it. Sorry, I can't. Nothing comes to mind right now.
A lot of my point is fallacies are something I would love to see this concept taught in high school, Why? What do kids do in high school that they shouldn't do? Fight. Okay, so they're listening to so and so. You get the he said, she said stuff going, but again, it's second, third person, and this kind of concept, teaching these kind of fallacies, could we get kids to start to use logic to say, "Hey, that doesn't make sense. Maybe I shouldn't trust." It's not just for evangelism. I think as a whole, we would be better as an American people if we put logic back in the math class. It's gone. And the only place you'll get logic now is in a college activity or in a social studies class. And this is just part of my biggest problem with what's being taught today. What I have I have one more video to share, which is with news. So I have to stop sharing to share this one. This is an actual thing that's actually truthful. It's kind of mind numbing. And I want you to think about this video. I work with a bunch of gentlemen and ladies across the country in an anti-Sharia movement. And this particular video I'm going to share with you comes from, this should blow your mind, the UK. It's all about changing terminology. They want to remove the terms Islamist. They want to remove that. They don't like the idea that counterterrorism uses the term Islamist. And, to quote, refer to the concept of radical Islam, which you and I know there's no such thing as moderate. There's no such thing as radical. It doesn't exist. So I'm going to play this video. Pay real close attention to this. I'm just going to blow this up first. All right. Now, here's the interesting problem with what was presented. And this is going to get my mouse back over here. And stop that. So here's what was presented. Number one, there was a recent survey that was done here in the United States. And I just turned this stupid thing off. Hold on a second. Okay. There's recent surveys conducted by ISPU. Now, ISPU is what we would consider a Muslim Brotherhood organization within the United States. It was conducted primarily at Muslim Brotherhood mosques. And the study revealed that Muslims, a larger percent of Muslims, are scared of Islam rather than everyone else. So my question is, in those percentage that they said they got, this 84%, you have to look at how much was, and they don't go back and talk about how much was reported that was false, is the other thing. They never fix that figure. And again, this is a stat given not by the state, not by the country. It's given by American Muslims for police, all right? Who are police officers. And you start thinking about these figures, where are they getting the data? It's not revealed. Is anything that's proven crime, proven? I mean, these are allegations. These are all allegations. They have a larger number of people who are doing this. There are other reasons why people may be upset with the people over there who are Muslim. Number one, the vast majority of migrants, new people into the country, are Muslim. Is that a reason that they could be upset rather than the fact that they are followers of Islam? Could it be the fact that migration is part of a requirement before you commit an act of jihad? The other discussion that we've been having with this is a discussion on what words will they use to replace. Does anybody have a clue what words they would use instead of Islamist? Anybody want to suggest? I think it's still. I think it's still Sadiq Khan. No, I think there's a new lady. I have to go double check. Yeah.
Would it be extremist?
I don't think that's going to work. But here's the one I want. Does anybody else want to try? Let's see if anybody else comes up with it first. You're on the right track, Kufar, but you got to think Islam. What would you say if you weren't saying if you're not saying Islamic, you're not saying Islamist,
Mohammedan?
And they got rid of that word because they claimed it was actually I haven't seen a good justification. The original claim of change for that is it's insulting. And I still don't see how that's insulting.
Everything insults them. Kind of like the liberals.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. So what the anti-Sharia groups want to do, they're suggesting, let's go with the original statement, the original description. We can go back old school. We'll use their terminology. What will we use if we're using their terminology? Jihadist. I mean, really, these are jihadi type politicians. These are jihadi type. Oh, now are we talking about civilization jihad? And are we talking about active war, people engaged in active warfare? What would happen if we did that? So somebody like me who writes about civilization jihad might get a little more recognition. Oh, this is the stuff. If they simply do that, I don't think the Muslims would be too happy either, because it takes away the claim of moderate. Wait a minute. How does it do that? Well, there's a kid in Australia. They're looking at his. I just read this story earlier today. He took part in a suicide bombing, and 8 years later, just this week, they put out how he ended up finding his way into jihadism. How did he become a jihadist, a suicide bomber for Islam, for ISIS? And what they discovered was he became a Muslim after his mom died. Well, his mom was a single parent. It sounds like he was pretty much left on his own. I could be wrong here, because that's the picture they're painting. It's the media. We can't trust them for being accurate. But this is an Australian daily news, and again, can't trust. So you're listening to the story. Okay, so he He goes to a mosque. He accepts Islam. Then he finds an ISIS recruiter online, and the two are talking, and they find a way for him to leave the country and get to ISIS. Okay. Then he accepts the job of being a suicide bomber. He kills himself for Islam. How did that happen? When you think about it, it's simply because somebody did not properly tell the truth. What does Islam believe? Someplace somebody did not. That mosque didn't tell him that belief in Islam was wrong. Maybe they enforced it. So, if you were a child, that was your child that was gone, I'd be concerned about that particular mosque. I'd be wanting your federal agency to be sitting there trying to figure out everything they're saying to find out if they're. This is the stuff you have to think about. Are they encouraging this? It sounds mean. It sounds cruel. The question is, why was there no conflict? And they won't discuss that. The media won't discuss it. If there was conflict, maybe the kid would start to think. But you won't find that. And this is the discussion that Stephen Coughlin is really good at explaining. There is no conflict. And that's what the real issue is. That's why there is no such thing as moderate Islam or radical Islam or extremist Islam. You talk to Muslims, they will tell you this. Dr. Kufar, have you heard that before? There is no such thing as moderate Islam?
Well, I've heard there's no moderate Islam, there's no liberal Islam, there's just Islam, and I agree.
I'll agree with them 100%. When we read the Quran, have we seen anything that would indicate there's room for any other belief but just one belief of Islam?
Not at all. Once you get past the incoherency and doesn't make sense and all the other errors.
Oh, yes. So for those listening, please tune in Saturday. This is likely to be our last session of dissecting the Quran.
Yep.
So please come up and join us for our last hurrah. And I'm in the middle of putting them all in a table, so you want to listen to it. I'm putting it into a table on paulsutliff.blogspot.com. I've got a ways to go to get it all in there. What are we up to? This will be 67 or 68 coming up. I think it's 68. Is it, Doc? I'm sorry. I think we're on 68 because I think the last week was 67. All right. Let me get to this next article I want to share, which is kind of, and I don't know anybody who, if you've seen this or didn't see this. I mentioned this on Usama's show, but I wanted to save this to talk about it for this show. I'm going to put this in the chat room. This is an article I think everyone should be out there sharing. This comes from breaking911.com, and there's a reason why I think everybody should be out there discussing this. This article came out November 13th. A Syrian refugee who plotted church bombing in Pittsburgh, sentenced to prison. Now, there's reasons why I think it should be discussed. The article states a Pennsylvania man was sentenced yesterday to, this will be on the 12th that he'd been sentenced. A Pennsylvania man was sentenced to 208 months, more than 17 years in federal prison following a lifetime of supervised release for attempting to provide material support to the Islamic State. Mustafa Musab Alawima, 24, age 24, out of Pittsburgh, pled guilty in the Western District of Pennsylvania on September 16th, 2021, to one count of attempting to provide material support to ISIS in connection with his plan to attack a church in Pittsburgh. Alawima admitted to planning a deadly bombing of a Pittsburgh church in the name of ISIS, the Assistant Attorney General Matthew Olson of the Justice Department's National Security Division said. The National Security Division was created to protect the nation from terrorist threats and we remain vigilant against those who would plot violent attacks on U.S. soil in the furtherance of an extreme ideology. Furtherance of an extreme ideology. Are you saying that Islam is an extreme ideology? That's the way this reads. If you pay attention, they're saying what the belief this man had is extreme. That would mean it's outside the norm. So if you're looking at Islam as a whole, okay, they say you can lie to each other. They say you can have slaves. You can beat your wives. I can go on and on and on. That it's normal to teach children to hate Jews and Christians. How far does that go? If you're teaching hatred and you're teaching the devaluing of human life, how far is that to killing people? Isn't that what Hitler did? He devalued human life and made it easier to kill. That's where you get the genocide of the Jews. This article continues. The defendants plan to bomb a Pittsburgh church and risk death or injury to residents in the area in the name of ISIS was thwarted by the extraordinary work of Pittsburgh Joint Terrorism Task Force, said U.S. Attorney Cindy Chung of the Western District of Pennsylvania. Our office will continue to hold accountable individuals who threaten the safety of our communities. She said she wanted to commend the great work of the JTTF, the Joint Terrorism Task Force. According to court documents, Alamar plotted to bomb a church located on the north side of Pittsburgh using an explosive device. His stated motivation to conduct such an attack was to support the cause of ISIS and to inspire other ISIS supporters in the United States to join together and commit similar acts in the name of ISIS. Alamar also targeted the church, which he described as a Nigerian church, to take revenge for our brothers in Nigeria. Alamar was aware that numerous people in the proximity of the church could be killed by the explosion. So again, when you read about jihad in Sharia, you read about jihad, let's say in a book by that is a tafsir. And I'm just going to point out one. Let me see. Here's one. Towards Understanding the Quran by Madudi. And then you get Sayyid Qutb. And that was just a tafsir on Surah 9. And you have to sit there and wonder, if I'm able to get this stuff without any, this is stuff to think about. If an average person can pick this stuff up, or if they're giving it out in the local mosque. Again, this is not unusual stuff. And that sounds, Madudi is one of the ones that jihadis love. Sayyid Qutb is the other one jihadis love. And again, Milestones is the book that explains the Islamic threat, the threat doctrine. Milestones. And that's, again, Sayyid Qutb. It's a threat doctrine of the Muslim Brotherhood. Let me just continue here. This guy, he distributed multiple instructional devices related to the construction and use of explosives and improvised IEDs to an individual Alamar believed to be a fellow ISIS supporter, but was in fact an FBI employee. So he gave instructions on how to make bombs to an FBI employee. This Alamar distributed the documents with the intent that the information be used in the assembly of a destructive device to conduct an attack for ISIS. And think about this. They caught this guy because his brain got ahead of him. Thank God they caught him. What kind of damage would he have done? And, I look at that, I'm just kind of mind blown. This next article I have This one bothers me, probably the worst. And I'll throw this one in the chat room. And so this one, I loved honest reporting. And if you haven't seen it, please go to honestreporting.com. I have, trying to maintain some friendships and relationships with some of these writers. This one is extremely important. Why? The headline, enough should be it. It says CNN silent on producer who declared himself a supporter of Team Hitler. It's happening again earlier this week. Honest Reporting exposed yet another mainstream journalist who glorified Adolf Hitler and the Palestinian terrorism. On Twitter, CNN producer Idris Muktaba Ibrahim proudly declared him a supporter of Team Hitler while describing the U.S. designated Hamas terrorist organization as freedom fighters defending their land. Ibrahim became the latest in a series of journalists whose anti-Jewish views have been brought to light by our editorial team. Again, this is the Honest Reporting editorial team. Over the last 3 months, they uncovered 4 anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli journalists and successfully convinced reputable outlets to cut ties with several of them. After Honest Reporting notified CNN of their producer's offensive social media history, on Sunday, a spokesman immediately assured us the matter was being investigated. Yet radio silence followed, and the subsequent emails went unanswered. What does that say when you think about it? CNN's apparent reluctance to swiftly condemn Ibrahim's Judophobia is surprising, especially given the brazenness of his online remarks. Now, do I think he fears Jews? I would say no. Do I think he wants to kill them? Well, if he's agreeing with Hitler, yes. Is he afraid of Judaism? Well, I think Islam fears Judaism because it is the fact that Jews exist is a denial of the Islamic faith. And that's what it comes down to. What does it mean when, I'm just going to throw this picture up on the screen. I want you to take a look at this tweet that this producer of CNN put out. And you tell me that this guy should not be removed. Take a look at that tweet. I have shifted to Team Germany after finding out that Messi supports Israel. Hashtag Team Hitler. Yeah. This is a guy that's okay in producing news for CNN. Really, do we think we can get this honest information out from a guy behind this? This is scary stuff. And Ed, you say it's a shocker. It's not a shocker because we keep seeing CNN people. CNN hired many MSNBC people. MSNBC people hired many Al Jazeera people. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if you looked in the history of this man if he had worked for Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera was a Muslim Brotherhood mouthpiece. Not a surprise. We now have the new head of Muslim Brotherhood, who is one of the leaders of he's the supreme guide, still acting out of Qatar, still producing on Al Jazeera. Same type of guy as the last one. And his name is out there, and I will have that for you next week with the news. Next article. And this one I want people to pay attention to also. And my purpose this next article is there is something that is being called love jihad. And I have real concerns when we think about this. What is, again, we have to look at this is India. This is from Hindustan Times. So we have to look at what's happening over there. I don't like the terminology, the fact that they would call it love. BJP legislators seek stricter punishment for, quote, love jihad cases. A BJP legislator, Rajwasar Singh, on Thursday urged Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath to amend the state laws dealing with heinous crimes and propose stricter punishment for, quote, love jihad. The BJP legislator on Thursday urged the Chief Minister Yogi to amend the state laws dealing with heinous crimes for love jihad in view of gruesome killing of a woman by her interfaith partner in New Delhi recently. In a 6-page letter, since sought amendment to the Prohibition of Unlawful Conversion of Religion Act in 2021 to enable speedy justice in such cases. He said there is a need to broaden the definition of allurement in cases of love jihad, and it must include marriage or a proposal of marriage or conjugal relationship or live-in relationship. Love jihad is a term used by activists to allege a concerted effort by Muslim men to convert Hindu women to Islam through marriage, through the courts, and the union government do not officially recognize the term. I kind of get why they don't. The bone-chilling incident of a man murdering and then chopping the body of a woman into 35 pieces is what they say reminiscent of love jihad crimes reported across the country of India. A series of similar events has led to a scenario of perpetual fear, profound distress, bordering on a sense of alarm in the community, and is therefore definitely cause for concern. Who's doing this? Muslims. They're tricking them in becoming subservient or being with someone they consider that they love. Does that person really love them? Or are they trying to trick them to follow them? Those are things that have to be asked and answered. That would be through the courts. Was it purposeful to trick them to do these things? And what happens when they say no? That's the point. That's why they're calling it love jihad. You do as they say, and then there's the threat. It's seduction, and then the threat becomes real. The person finds out they really don't like Islam. She doesn't want to wear the hijab. She doesn't want to wear the burqa. In Islam, these things are permitted. Read Sharia, pick up Reliance of the Traveler. This stuff is all too real. I wish it wasn't. I really wish it wasn't. I wish there was no reason for us to have to read this stuff. But we have too many people out there who are so ignorant that they are creating a dangerous society for us by not knowing these things. And the sad truth is, those are the people who are supposed to be protecting us. They're the members of the State Department for the United States. They're the members of the CIA and the FBI who refuse to understand and learn these things. I say refuse to. They don't allow their employees to learn. Think about that. They had trainers. They fired them. They had manuals exposing this stuff. They burned it. They shredded it. And this is the stuff that's being permitted. Notice how silent everything went after everybody came here from Afghanistan. Why has there been no reports on where these people are today? Why has no news source covered this? Why has no news source asked, where are they? We're at year 2 after this. A whole year. So we're a whole year. This would have happened last year. Think about it. Why has no one reported on this? That was last year. Who's responsible for it? Oh, Joe. Joe's responsible for it. No one else. There's a lot of bad news out there. I'd love to leave with something good. And it's always hard to do that. I think the best thing that I can leave you with this. We have a responsibility as Christians to share the truth. And there is importance in sharing the truth. I took a child out once, and we're talking about sharing the gospel. And we're out reading tracts to people doing this, and he was kind of hesitant. I just go up and believe it or not, it's me, and I'm not the one who usually likes to do this kind of stuff, but kid wanted to do it, and I took him out, and I've done it before. It's just I've become more closed up and not as willing to go out and witness. So then I was a lot more open. I took this kid out, and he was hesitant. I said, well, why don't you just read this tract? And I saw this gentleman, and I said, why don't you just go read that tract to this guy? He reads the tract, and the guy accepts Christ. And he says to the boy, this is a message I've been waiting for all day. As we're leaving, he's so excited, he can't shut up. He says, that young man came here and he shared something with me. I've been waiting all day for it. Let me read you this. That man, after getting saved, was so excited, he shared the same thing. So, think about that excitement. Think about when you first came to Christ, the excitement you had. Is there a reason for us to be quiet? No. If anything, there's more of a reason for us today to be louder and louder and louder. Because the kids today in high schools across America don't know who Jesus is. They have no clue. They've never met him. Their parents have never gone to church. That says something. We're losing a battle. We have to fight to get the truth out to the kids, to get the truth out to their parents in every way we can. I say fight to get the textbooks removed when they have errors. It's extremely important, especially with the social studies textbooks today. But it's a fight. You can't just accept a loss. You have to keep a fight is you're in it for the long haul. We have to accept that they are in it for the long haul. Who are we if we don't stand up? It's time to stand up. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Dr. Kufar, thank you for joining us. Darcy and Larry, anybody have anything else they'd like to add?
Well, glad I could join. I wasn't sure what time I was going to get home.
I'm glad you're here because the debates you do, I don't think people understand how important understanding fallacies are with debates, but it's power. It just creates power.
I was going to point out something earlier, but it had to do with it's not a fallacy. It's just it's a logical issue with a verse that's in the Quran, chapter 2, verse 140. It's asking, it's implying something that could not have happened. And as why it's being asked, I have no clue.
Good. You want to read that?
Yeah, it's chapter 2, verse 140.
Okay.
I guess it's Muhammad speaking. I don't know. Maybe it's Allah. Who knows? And it goes like this. It says, or do you, speaking to somebody or a group of people, and it says, or do you say that Abraham, Ishmael, and Isaac and Jacob and the descendants were Jews or Christians? So the problem that I have is that it's implying that Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac and Jacob, forget about the tribes, that they could have been Jews or Christian when for sure there was no Christians during the time of those guys. So why ask the question? I don't know. And the Jews didn't come until after the sons of Jacob. So none of those guys, those four guys mentioned, wouldn't have been Jews anyway. They wouldn't have been viewed as Jews. and you know, definitely they wouldn't be Christians. So Muslims said, "Oh, you know, Christians or Jews were saying that." I don't think so, because that implies that uh, you're saying that Christians are stupid. I mean, we all know that Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, and Jacob couldn't have been Christians because there were no Christians before Christ came. So to ask that question is just, to me, it's like stupid.
Well, to me, this is another reason you can say simply that this source, we're talking about the Quran, is a false authority because it doesn't recognize simple factual material as you're presenting. And that takes away the authority of the Quran. If it can't recognize simple factual things, then it cannot be used for a source except to show Islam the errors of its ways. And that's, again, it's a false source is what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I think you pointed out another one that's absurd. The one where Allah is going to be asking Jesus, the Islamic Jesus, did you tell your followers to take you and your mother as gods besides me? Now there is nobody, not even I don't believe there's any heretical group of Christians that ever saw Mary as being part of the Trinity. And they'll tell you, no, it's not Trinity. Well, hello, Allah, Isa, and Mary as gods. That's three right there. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what the verse is trying to say. Allah doesn't know what the Trinity is or what Christians believe.
And this is, again, the sad truth here is because this is a bad source, a false source, a false authority according to its own statements. I mean, it's bad enough that when we're reading it, it displays con man language. It's bad enough that we're reading it. I'm going to say, people, please go back and listen to this series if you haven't heard it, because we reach conclusions. One of the conclusions I've reached while listening to this is that if these are the words of Allah, Allah has TBI. He displays a constant chronological impairment, which is in the verse that you quoted earlier. He doesn't know how to put the prophets in chronological order. And he switches topics so quickly. There's just a number of things in there that make me come to that conclusion. The other conclusion that I have come to, and I think you agree with me on this one, Dr. Kufar, is that the author knows Arabic as a second, third, or fourth language. Would you agree with that one?
Definitely.
Yeah. And again, Kufar English is not his first language, so he recognizes some of the problems.
Yep.
And I'm a retired special ed teacher. And having worked with many students who have a second language, there's certain things. I've worked with college kids trying to take state exams and how they're answering essay questions. And, they had the same issues as I read in that Quran. And so that stuff makes me think, what is the real issue? It's something to think about. Everybody, I want to say thank you. Darcy or Larry, did you have something you want to say?
I do.
All right.
I think for everybody listening, put aside everything you think you know, everything you know, and start from the beginning. Start researching. Read everything you can get your hands on and make your own decision.
That's
Thanks.
really what it comes down to. Do your own research. Don't trust other people to do it for you. I have too big a library because of that. I have books all over my living room. I have books all over my kitchen, and I even have a small library. It's full, overflowing. Why? Because the information you get from books is more trustworthy than you get from on the net. And it's important that you do the reading you need to do to find out facts. Some things we get told are simply lies. Some of it's purposeful parody. If you don't know what parody is, it's making fun of. It's not there to be truthful. It's there to be funny. We even have good news. What's the name of that source that does that? There's a few sources out there to just make you laugh. Their whole purpose is to make you laugh. And what's funnier is when some people believe their stuff to be true. AOC has been caught more than once with that one, which still gets me every time. God bless everybody. You all have a great night, and hope to see you next week. Actually, next week is Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to play, I will do for Thanksgiving. What I play is Red Fox, her reading of the Alien Arc Way, and you'll probably find that Christmas usually comes when I get Christmas sometimes falls on the Thursday. When it does that, I get both. I play it on both days. It's a good story. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget Saturday at 6 p.m. Saturday at 6 p.m. It's going to be the end of the Dissecting the Quran series. So it's going to be the finale. I'll have to figure out what to do. So please join us. Tell all your friends. Probably only lasts about an hour and a half. And
I don't know. We have Usama with it. Might go the full 2.
There you go. All righty. Well, thank you. I got to go take out the big dog.
Okay. God bless everybody. Good night.
All right. Good night.
Good night. God bless.